ಕೇಸು ಕೂಡ ಆಗಿದೆ.
Hello everyone, you're watching News Epicentre with me, Maria Shakil. In Karnataka, a high-ranking Lingayat Seer, Sri Shivamurthy Muruga Sharanaru, has been accused, along with 4 others, of sexually harassing 2 minors at his mutt. He has been booked under the POCSO, that is Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, but was released after questioning by the police. The seer has called the charges a conspiracy and called on his supporters to ignore what he called our rumors. But CNN News 18 has accessed the inside track of the seer's detention and quizzing. Sources say he was reportedly planning to escape to Goa, but the police traced the location of his aides and he was finally detained near Dumka. On the political front, the Congress and the BJP seem to be on the same page, with no side making much noise over the charges. From Karnataka Chief Minister B.S. Yedurappa, who has dismissed the charges, saying the seer will come clean, to Karnataka Chief Minister, even Basavaraj Bommai also saying that law will take its own course. He has also refused to comment beyond that. On the other side, Karnataka Congress Chief D.K. Shivkumar has said that the case should not be politicized, saying that the seer in question has done a lot of work for the state. So why are both the sides pulling their punches? It is the political power the seer commands. Remember, the Lingayats determine the election outcomes in 90 to 100 seats. In the 2018 elections, nearly 60 of the 224 MLAs were from the Lingayat community. The current Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai and 8 of his ministers hail from the same community. While it is the government's duty to investigate without bias and ensure justice is delivered, the big question emerges: does the accused seer have a political shield? Before I get the guests, here's what happened today.
Anger is growing against prominent Lingayat Seer Shivamurthy Muruga Sharanaru. The chief pontiff of the prominent Muruga Mutt in Karnataka's Chitradurga was detained after he was booked for allegedly sexually assaulting minor girls at institutes run by the Mutt. He has been booked under sections of the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. The complaint was filed on behalf of 2 minors who reached out to an NGO in Mysuru. The girls, aged 15 and 16, were staying at a hostel under the Muruga Mutt. They were allegedly sexually abused for over 3.5 years. After they narrated their ordeal, it was brought to the attention of the District Children's Welfare Committee. Apart from the seer, the FIR was also registered against 4 other individuals, including the warden of the institution. But the seer remained adamant. He addressed his devotees who had gathered at the Mutt premises and claimed that there was a long-drawn conspiracy against him. Karnataka Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai was tight-lipped on the matter, saying the truth will come out.
2 ಕೇಸುಗಳನ್ನು ಪೊಲೀಸರು ದಾಖಲೆ ಮಾಡಿ ತನಿಖೆ ನಡೆಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಮಾತನಾಡೋದಾಗಲಿ ವ್ಯಾಖ್ಯಾನ ಮಾಡೋದಾಗಲಿ.
Even Congress State President D.K. Shivkumar didn't criticize the seer.
I have seen that he is a very noble man who has done some great contribution to the state. Let me not interfere with whatever the police or the government is doing late.
In the run-up to next year's assembly elections in Karnataka, both the Congress and the BJP have been trying to woo Lingayats. They make up nearly 17% of the state's population and can determine the poll outcome in 90 to 100 constituencies. But will that come in the way of a fair probe against the Lingayat Seer? Or will the fight for votes come before justice?
How will the 2 minors get justice? That is the question that I'm asking on News Epicentre this evening. Brinda Adige, women and child activist. Rahul Ishwar is an author and activist. Sri Raj Nair is spokesperson of VHP. And Aditya Srinivasan is an advocate. Aditya, for 3.5 years, 1 minor was assaulted. Another one for over a year. They go missing, are kept in captivity of someone. There is a kidnapping angle as well. Why was no action taken for so long?
Look, I don't know about the details of when exactly some of these facts were produced before the authorities. It may have been the case that not all of this was known to the authorities, particularly the fact that the miners were in captivity for a period of as long as 3.5 years. It may not have been known very well in advance, but if it had been known, and the authorities kept quiet on it, I think it's extremely shameful, and it's something that all of us really need to look into.
And Brinda, had the accused been someone else, not an influential seer, then would the police have approached this case, perhaps differently, in a different manner?
Absolutely. If this was any other ordinary citizen, they would have immediately arrested the person, produced the person before the magistrate, and by now the person would be in judicial custody. Why is the police dilly-dallying with this particular case? Has the police also why hasn't the police made the 164 statement?
Yes.
Why has the police also not added the sections related to prevention of atrocity on SC/ST? Because these children claim, and their school register shows that they are from the SC/ST community. So the police over here is being very partial to this specifically alleged rapist and 4 others because they belong to this particular mutt. And like you pointed out in the beginning of this debate, Maria, they are very powerful. They are powerfully connected. They have political support, both tacit and overt. And we heard all the politicians, irrespective of their parties, unanimously have become authorities on conduct certificate instead of extending confidence to the victim survivors that they will be safe, protected, and a fair investigation will happen. They are going around talking about what good work has been done by them, that there is a conspiracy, that he will be proven innocent.
Nair, that exactly is the problem here. Only because he is an influential person, only because he is a religious figure, that is the reason why politics is being mixed in this. Shouldn't it be seen purely from the prism of investigation? Only because he has had high-profile visitors and, he seems to be being dealt with kid gloves. My question is to the Karnataka police. Juvenile Justice Act, POCSO Act, have these been, used in the right way? Because they prescribe that police protection be given to the minors. Have the minors been given that police protection?
I would suggest let us not go for a media trial. Now we heard the Honorable Chief Minister. We also heard the Leader of Opposition, Sri D.K. Shivakumar. In the past also there was conspiracy hatched, especially against the Hindu seers and saints, and we saw that many were wrongly accused of. So here there is a judicial system in this nation, and Karnataka government is known for rendering justice. And even the judicial process of this nation is great.
Then why are the politicians making statements at all, giving him character certificate? Shouldn't that be a subject of investigation? Let the law take its course.
Let the law take it. That's what I'm saying. That's what is the CM saying. So let us not accuse the person without having any concrete evidence.
There are 2 minors who have, let's be clear, Mr. Nair, the case would not have been registered had there not been enough evidence. There are 2 minors that we are looking at here. Rahul Ishwar, come in on this.
Mariaji, just 2 points. One, yes, this is a very serious charge. Nobody is denying that. But across political spectrum, and not because of Lingayat vote bank, this Seer is very much respected. He has been known for his work. And beyond politics, he has been applauded for his good work. So we should be cautious. The only submission is, many courts have pointed out there were many such allegations which proved to be different later. For example, just last month, after 7 years in jail, one Kendriya Vidyalaya teacher was let off in POCSO saying that the girl was neither raped nor became pregnant nor did she abort. So there were many such cases which happened, and because of this background of cases, people are suspicious, and that suspicion should be respected. It should be a matter of investigation and not of either pro-media trial or against media trial for the Seer. I deeply respect that Seer. He is a very respected person. At the same point of time, we should not jump the gun. We should not already brand him the convict. We should not already create a prejudice in people's mind.
That is the reason why politicians have given him a certificate, and so are you, saying clearly that because there is a history of misuse of this act, it is being the same case here. Let that be investigated. My question here is, he is a powerful man. The police would not have registered a case had there been no evidence so far, Brinda Dige. And again, because likes of Rahul Ishwar and Sriraj Nair are taking the same point that the politicians in the state have been saying, my question again then would be, will there be a free and fair trial? Trial of this nature, should it be moved to a place, a different state perhaps, where the accused person cannot tamper with evidence?
Yes, the trial must be moved to a different place where the accused person will not be a danger to the complainants as well as to the NGO. And let us also remember that there is no need for us to jump the gun like Rahul Ishwar says, but follow the procedures, follow the rule. Nobody is asking you to jump the gun. What does the rule say? What does the law say? The law says 24 hours after the FIR, you will arrest the person in the POXO case, produce before the magistrate. After that, maybe the trial happens and then proven guilty or innocent. But why is everybody else giving this character certificate, like you say, or a conduct certificate to this person and casting aspersions? Please remember, the Child Welfare Committee is a bench of magistrates. The case went before them first. They ascertained the facts. They ascertained the statements. Only after that it comes before the police station, where the police further ascertain the case. They go for a medical and only then an FIR. So it's not that somebody just went or women fancy and an FIR has been registered. That is why we are concerned today that probably the CBI must take over the case.
Yes, and why are there fewer voices like BJP MP Leher Singh Siroya? I'm not saying it, I'm quoting him here, Rahul Ishwar and Sriraj Nair. He says, each time something like that happens, it shakes our confidence in our own surroundings and in our own people. As a society, we owe it to ourselves that those allegations are probed thoroughly and impartially. The Karnataka government and all political parties have to ensure that there are no pulls, pressures, politics and interference in this case. The girls deserve nothing but justice. Shouldn't this be something that should be said by one and all? Rather than what you have said, Mr. Nair, in which you have come to this conclusion that there could have been misuse. You are actually victim shaming here.
See, I never said that. Please don't put words in my mouth. I said that let there be no media trial. I respect the honorable CM and the leader of the opposition both, and let the law take its own course. That's it.
Are you stopping at that, Rahul Ishwar? You again seem to have, no, both of them went ahead, several miles ahead, and spoke in the similar way the politicians did. The reason why I don't have politicians on my debate this evening is because both the BJP and the Congress have refused to come. They are of the opinion that they should not look into it because he's an influential man. And the elections are not very far.
Yeah, Shakalji, we all respect the outrage you show. We all need a thorough probe. Nobody is saying no. But from all the understanding and experience with this Seer, cutting across the spectrum, he never seemed to be a person, or he's never a person who has any kind of bad reputation. And one more very important thing, there was a politician involved in the conspiracy against him. He and his wife stand to benefit something, which are things that has to be come out. So there is a conspiracy angle that is being very well told by people who are not even close to him, saying that there has been a power struggle in the mud. And Yediyurappa brightly pointed it out. It's a power struggle inside the mud itself. Want to demean him for something. So we should wait rather than jump the gun.
Okay.
Yes, justice should be there.
Let's talk about the pure investigation here. Aditya Srinivasan, when a case is registered under POXO, in case of an accused, knowing fully well the power differential between the victim and the accused in this case, can he be just let go after questioning without even recording of a statement under 164?
Under presumably 161. Look, the offences under the POXO Act are very likely going to be cognizable offences. But that said, there is an element of discretion that is allowed to the authorities. They don't necessarily have to go ahead and immediately make an arrest just on the basis of what they have. They may, in their wisdom, choose to make that arrest at a subsequent point of time. They may want to first gather some more information before doing it. before taking those steps, they need not also immediately record a Section 161 statement if the person has only been detained temporarily. But we'll have to see how this unfolds. I think the statement that was made by the BJP MP that you mentioned, I'm not able to recall his name. I think that was a very measured statement.
Yes,
And
Siroya.
that ought to be
Mr. Leher Singh Siroya.
right. I think that statement was very measured, and that ought to be the basis guiding how the investigation is conducted.
Yes, there should not be any pressure, there should not be any pulls, there should not be any politics over it. And then he also goes on to say, Brinda Dige, that the case should be transferred outside Karnataka. Are you of the opinion this should happen?
I do not know about that, but I think we must have the CBI take over this case. Outside Karnataka, then it's going to be a problem, taking the children, safety of the children, because they are continuing to be here. Arrest has not yet happened of this person. The POCSO law deems immediate arrest so that the victim survivors are safe. Their families are safe. The witnesses are safe. The people who support the victim survivors are safe. This is one of the reasons for all of it. It's not that, same for every case. In POCSO, they have deemed it like that. So that protection has not yet been extended to the children as well as to the NGO. All of this requires to be considered by the state machinery. And the state machinery has not done any of those things. None of the politicians uttered a word about extending that confidence to the victim survivors that there would be justice and they will be safe and they will be protected.
Yes, and Mr. Nair, here are the victims who have stayed in his mud. And it would have taken a great degree of courage for them to come out and speak about it 3.5 years later, 1.5 years later. And that is the reason why they approached an NGO. The parents have been distraught, and rightly so. They are seeking justice here. And justice cannot be delivered if during the investigation, the seer has right now only been questioned and he has been let go. He has not been even detained, right? If during the investigation, statements such as yours or by politicians, including the Congress and the BJP, is made. Sriraj Nair.
Well, I said very clearly, let us not go in for a media trial. There is a proper, very strong judicial system in this country. Let us respect and abide by it. Let us not be selective. Let the judicial process go on.
Yes, that's what I am saying. Let the judicial process go on. And in this judicial process, if a case is registered under POCSO and juvenile justice, then the minors should have been provided with a security. That hasn't happened. Here is a case, an angle of kidnapping and captivity as well in this particular case. We need more details in that. And in POCSO Act, and given the statement that has been made by the BJP's own leader, your sitting government's own MP, the party to which Mr. Basavaraj Bommai belongs to, if somebody like Mr. Siroya, Leher Singh Siroya, can talk about there should be no pulls and pressures and everybody should speak only about justice for these two minors, then why should we be looking at the points that you are trying to make or Rahul Ishwar is saying? Rahul.
The core point here is truth. Everyone respects. We are all people with families, so we understand and respect those victims or those survivors, plight. At the same point of time, because of the backlog of a lot of fake cases, for example, Delhi High Court Justice Prasad back in 2021 said there is an alarming rate of false rape cases. And Delhi Women's Commission back in 2014 said nearly 53.7% of the cases seems to be fake or are not right. So let us wait for the conclusion. I'm absolutely sure all of us will stand together and say that this person will be punished. Otherwise, wait and give the due
But Rahul,
process.
are you not prejudicing the trial or the investigation by saying what you are saying right now? Right at the beginning of investigation.
The investigation is going on, and one more thing, like Vrindaji said, all the necessary security and the other things should be provided, and I am sure it will be provided by the Karnataka government. But at the same point of time, we should not be in a hurry to brand the Seer as a wrong person, because Seer is such a bad track record.
Yes. Brinda?
Ishwar, we are not branding anybody. The law has to take its course irrespective of who the alleged rapist is. We must remember that there is this very strong messaging and narrative that is going across, and like Maria pointed out, a prejudiced view that the victim complaint need not be taken seriously. The very important aspects that we need to address over here is caste and gender. That these two people, you need not take them seriously because A, they are children, girls, B, they are SC/ST, and the person they are complaining against is somebody who is very influential, very powerful, very whatever, all the adjectives that you have used. That itself is a wrong narrative. It's a wrong messaging. That's not what we want. Like you said, we want the truth, we want the facts, and we want justice. But before that, why would you go around with a narrative that is going to shatter everything that you talk in the same breath as justice? That is exactly what we are saying. There is no media trial happening here. Give the truth, give the fact, whatever it is, protect the children so that they do not turn hostile.
Yes, it's about protection
Protect
to
the
those
family.
two minors who may have taken a lot of courage. Imagine what the family would be going through, that they gathered that strength to complain against him. Imagine when the investigation began or the case was registered, it may not, there must have been a lot of pull and pressure, as this MP is talking about, and still the police found some evidence and then they registered the case, and then the questioning has happened. Aditya, help us understand what will be so difficult in case of trial if it were to continue in Karnataka only.
I mean, look, there's obviously the fears that there could be an element of tampering of evidence, of intimidation of witnesses. You'll find that during the course of the trial, certain persuasions have been made, and certain persons who were willing to give evidence in a particular direction have suddenly turned hostile. There's a possibility of all sorts of things happening with respect to a trial that's held in the home state, where the accused, so to speak, I'm not suggesting that the Seer has already become an accused, but should he become an accused, where it seems that he enjoys a vast amount of political power, as well as administrative power de facto. So there's a lot of things that could happen in theory. There are, of course, safeguards that are built in within the statute, and there are additional safeguards which the government can provide for. But then that really comes down to the question of whether you have confidence in the government to properly discharge its obligation towards providing those safeguards.
Well, in this particular case, both the government and the opposition are very tight-lipped because of the influence that he commands, and then we are talking about justice for these two girls, and the only focus should be about justice rather than the politics and, of course, the religious domain in which the entire story is being looked at as well. Brinda Adige, Rahul Ishwar, Sri Raj Nair and Aditya Srinivas, thank you so much for joining us. Shifting focus to Jharkhand now. A young 17-year-old was set on fire in Dumka district of Jharkhand. She was a student of class 12th, and like any other girl, she had plans for a future, and her parents had plans for her. This incident took place on the 23rd of August, where she was killed by a man named Shahrukh Hussain. Her crime, she refused and rejected his proposal after he stalked her for days. After battling for her life for 5 days, she succumbed to her injuries on Sunday. The suspect poured petrol on her through the window of her room and set her on fire. Both Shahrukh and Chotu Khan the man who supplied the petrol, have been arrested. The miner's death has triggered protests by the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and Bajrang Dal in Dumka, following which prohibitory orders have been imposed. Jharkhand Chief Minister Hemant Soren has promised to fast-track the case and assured strict punishment for the accused. His government has also announced 10 lakhs in compensation for the family. The National Commission for Women has also taken cognizance of the incident and asked the state DGP to send a report within 7 days. But the big question emerges: could she have been saved with timely action? Was it inaction, prejudice, or both that killed this young girl? First, let's listen in to the chilling statement she made before the magistrate, and this was just few days before her death.
वो हमको धमकी दे रहा था कि तुम मिलो, नहीं मिल रहे थे, तो इसलिए हम फिर धमकी दिया, फिर आके आग जला के कर दिया 10 से 15 दिन से। कहता था तुम बात करो, मिलो हमसे और शादी करो, नहीं तो तुमको मार देंगे, धमकी देता था।
Joining me now is Ishika. She is the victim's sister. We have changed her name. Saryu Roy is independent MLA of Jamshedpur. Nirmal Kaur, former DGP of Jharkhand. And we also have Monica Arya, a social activist. I'm going to begin with you, the victim's sister. उस दिन क्या घटना हुई थी? क्या आपकी बहन ने आपको कुछ बताया था?
सर वो सोई थी तो खिड़की से पेट्रोल छिड़क के माचिस मार दिया गया।
अब क्या उन्होंने बताया था शाहरुख के बारे में? क्या वो उनके साथ पढ़ता था? वो कौन व्यक्ति था उनके साथ? क्या वो कभी उनकी बातचीत हुई थी?
पढ़ता नहीं था, 10-15 दिन से उसको परेशान कर रहा था। उसको फोर्स करा कि हमसे बात करो, मिलो, तो ये मना कर दिया, तो उसको धमकी दिया मारने का।
क्या आपने पुलिस को खबर किया था जब वो धमका रहा था?
तो घटना के बाद बताई, तो घटना के बाद उसको गिरफ्तार किया गया।
ये परिवार का ये भी कहना है, इनफैक्ट पॉलिटिशियंस भी ये कह रहे हैं कि अगर सही समय पे उनको मेडिकल केयर मिल जाता और दुमका से उनको कोई दूसरे शहर में ले जाया जाता या दिल्ली लाया जाता या फिर कलकत्ता ले जाया जाता तो शायद उनकी जान बच जाती।
ट्रीटमेंट तो पूरा हुआ ही, पूरा डॉक्टर जितना करना था किया। दुमका में ट्रीटमेंट नहीं हो पाया, इसलिए उसको रांची लेके गए।
उनकी मौत के लिए आप किनको जिम्मेदार ठहराती हैं? प्रशासन को या सरकार कुछ करती और कर सकती थी तो शायद उनकी जान बच जाती आपकी बहन की?
किसी को नहीं।
क्या परिवार वालों ने रिक्वेस्ट किया था हॉस्पिटल को कि उनको दुमका से जो रांची ले जाया गया, रांची से शायद दिल्ली ले जाया जाता इलाज कराने के लिए?
परिवार लोग नहीं, ज़्यादातर हम और मेरे पापा फोर्स के कि नहीं जाना तो जाना है, कोई हम लोग साथ नहीं दिए सर। रांची का और दुमका के जो मिनिस्टर लोग थे वो लोग हम लोग के साथ थे और परिवार में बाकी कोई नहीं।
जब आपने रिक्वेस्ट किया था तो हॉस्पिटल,
हम और मेरे पापा के फोर्स से उसको लेके गए।
तो हॉस्पिटल से क्या जवाब आया था? पुलिस ने क्या कहा था?
डॉक्टर से बात की तो बोले हाँ, तो डॉक्टर छोड़ दिया, बोले हम क्या करें, तुम लोग को ले जाना तो ले जा सकती हो। तो हम लोग जबरदस्ती लिखा उखा के ले गए।
अब ये जो पूरी घटना है बहुत बड़ी हो गई है। झारखंड के मुख्यमंत्री हेमंत सोरेन से भी सवाल उठाया जा रहा है। आप उनको क्या कहेंगी, सरकार को क्या कहेंगी झारखंड की?
यही कि उसको फांसी की सजा दी जाए।
ऑल राइट, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग अस। सो आप फांसी की सजा की बात करिए। सरयू राय जी, झारखंड में एक लड़की, एक माइनर के साथ ऐसी शर्मनाक घटना होती है और वहां के पॉलिटिशियंस इस बात पर भी जेएमएम वर्सेस भाजपा करते हैं। सरयू राय जी, अगर आप सुन सकते हैं।
क्योंकि ये बहुत दुखद बात है। जिस दिन लड़की को दुमका से लाया गया, रांची के कुछ समाज, जी आपको सुन रहा हूँ मैं।
जी बोलिए।
जी, बच्ची को दुमका से रांची ले आया गया, उसी दिन यहाँ के समाज सेवी करणी सेना के कुछ लग गए थे कि बेहतर चिकित्सा हो, उसको कोई कमी न रहे, और रोज रिपोर्ट लिया करते थे। उसकी मौत हुई था बहुत अच्छी तरह से। अचानक बाद में पूरे बदन में उसको जलन होने लगी और रात में 1 बजे मृत्यु हो गई। अब देखिए, पूरा झारखंड इस मामले में आज अशांत है। ये न झामुमो का विषय है, न भारतीय जनता पार्टी का विषय है। ये हमारे समाज में एक ऐसा माहौल बन गया है जिस माहौल में कुछ लोग अपने आप को इतना निडर समझने लगे हैं, इतना बेखौफ हो गए हैं ये लोग कि ये इतने हैं कि किसी बहन बेटी घर में सोई हुई है और उस पर पेट डाल दें, उसको जला दें। ऐसा माहौल क्यों बनता है? इसलिए मैं किसी सरकार को ब्लेम नहीं करना, मगर सरकार में जो बैठे लोग हैं उनको ये जरूर सोचना कि हम इस तरह का एक माहौल बनाएं कि जो अपराधी है थोड़ा हमसे डरे। और भारी है दूसरा तबका,
और ये जो अपराधी है, जो जिसकी शक्ल अभी हमारे टेलीविजन
तो
स्क्रीन पे चल रही है, सरयूराज जी,
व्यवस्था
I'll ask my
की
producer
बहुत
to
हो
fix
जाती
your
है।
audio because there seems to be
ऐसे
a problem with that
लोगों
audio.
का भय नहीं रहता।
Monica Arya, this smirk on his face, the stalker's face, and only because this minor doesn't give in to his advances, he has the audacity to go and burn her. It speaks volumes about our society, a society which is not able to protect its girls.
जी, मेरी आवाज सुनाई दे रही है आपको?
जी,
क्या मेरी आवाज सुन पा रहे हैं? मैं
निर्मल कौर,
बोलूं?
टेक दैट क्वेश्चन।
मैं आपका लास्ट पार्ट नहीं सुन पाई हूँ, लेकिन जितना मैं समझ पाई हूँ इसको, निश्चित तौर पर ये एक ऐसी घटना है जहां सरकार भी फेल हुई है और समाज भी फेल हुआ। जैसा कि इस अंकिता प्रकरण ने बहुत सारे सवाल खड़े किए हैं। वो 2 साल से लगभग बच्ची परेशान हो रही थी, उसकी पढ़ाई डिस्टर्ब हो रही थी। तो वो सोसाइटी कहाँ थी जो पैचअप करवाने में लगी हुई थी और उसकी एजुकेशन पर ध्यान नहीं दे रही थी। उसके लिए एक खतरा उसके आसपास मंडरा रहा है, इस पर ध्यान नहीं दे रही थी। वो परिवार क्यों नहीं इतनी हिम्मत जुटा सका कि वो परिवार पुलिस के पास जाता और प्रोटेक्शन मांगता उससे? तो क्या ऐसा है कि राज्य में ऐसा माहौल बन गया है जहां आम नागरिक को ये विश्वास नहीं है कि अगर उसे सुरक्षा की जरूरत है तो सुरक्षा मिल जाएगी? बेटियां कहाँ जाएंगी इस राज्य की? एक बेटी को हमने अभी खो दिया है, दूसरी बेटी आज भी रिम्स में जिंदगी और मौत के बीच जूझ रही है। वो एसिड अटैक की शिकार है, उसकी भी स्थिति बहुत खराब है। और सरकार 6 दिन लगा देती है अंकिता प्रकरण को एक्नॉलेज करने के लिए, उस पर किसी भी तरह का कोई स्टेप उठाने के लिए, और उसके बाद बयानबाजी करती है। आम लोगों ने इस मामले को उठाया है, किसी राजनेता ने नहीं उठाया है। और सरकार के लोग आकर कहते हैं कि आप इस पर राजनीति नहीं कीजिए। मतलब अगर आम आदमी अपनी सुरक्षा को लेकर कोई सवाल उठाएगा,
yes, this is about safety security and safety security of the most vulnerable, that is young girls. Why has the state government failed her? Visibly, the state government, Hemant Soren government failed this girl. They could have done much more. They could have flown her. That's what the opposition is demanding, and rightly so here. That could she have been provided better medical care? If there was no proper hospital in Ranchi, could she have been, brought to All India Institute of Medical Sciences or to the neighboring state of Bengal? Why weren't right steps being taken here, Nirmal Kaur? And when we look at the investigation, even the investigation has been going slow.
बिल्कुल, आप एकदम
Nirmal Kaur.
Gee, the spine-chilling incident, it's really, it chills you to the bones to think what the poor girl had to suffer. Such a young girl, just a kid and a motherless kid at that. She was all alone in her fight against this, very sad kind of mentality prevailing in her neighborhood. And this person wanted to trap her in her, and perhaps abuse her, misuse her, or destroy her. And he just destroyed her. Sprinkled petrol and lit a matchbox. And she's made a dying declaration. Dying declaration is a very, very important piece of evidence. Under the Evidence Act, it's perhaps the most important piece of evidence which is admissible straight away. It doesn't require any cross-examination, and it doesn't, it is given the highest respect. And the poor girl has died. And the statement she has made, I'm sure it will get her, this perpetrator of the crime, convicted very, very quickly, because the CM has promised fast track kind of court for
But
this
Nirmal Kaur,
trial of this case.
why does it take the state government to promise this fast track of the entire case or the SIT investigation only after there is an outrage in the media?
See, it is the question eventually is over girls' safety. How safe are our women and girls in our society? There are various factors at play here. One is, of course, inherently women are perceived as weak, and they are vulnerable. They are very vulnerable. This girl was young and she didn't have a mother. She was struggling to study. She was taking tuitions and she was earning her own money. Not very well off family. And on top of it, this boy who harasses her, stalks her. And ek aur baat, one more thing we have to keep in mind is that there are organizations which are preparing these boys, especially the slightly better looking boys. They finance them to trap girls, to romance girls, and to marry them, perhaps to convert them. And eventually these girls end up being sex slaves, or they end up being domestic slaves. In London also, I have come across such cases where girls are being taken away to some, very retrograde kind of countries. And at that point in London, when I made this study, about 600 Punjabi Sikh girls were taken away by this kind of a method. This is the modus operandi.
Saryu Rai ji,
You trap a girl, you marry her.
सरयू राय जी, सवाल ये भी उठता है कि इस पर जो भी एक्शन हो रहा है आउटरीच के बाद क्यों हो रहा है? जब तक मीडिया कोई केस हाईलाइट नहीं करती है, उससे पहले सारे नेता बोलते हैं कि एक्शन होगा. एक वो ऑपोजिशन सरकार से सवाल पूछती है, सरकार बोलती है कि इस पे पॉलिटिक्स नहीं करिए, और ये सब केस में साफ तौर पे ये दिखता है कि this is a case in which it's a reflection on our society, but also the failure of the government. The family did not have faith in the local police to go and complain when she talked about this boy, said that he is constantly harassing her, forcing her into, becoming her friend, or whatever you may say. This was a case of constant harassment.
Yeah, you are right. Whatever you said is right. What is happening that in the state like Jharkhand, law and order are becoming casualty. It is violated with impunity. And the lawbreakers don't have any fear in their mind. This is because the police and the bureaucracy, they prefer to abide by the dictate of someone who is high up in the government. And the common person who is going to lodge a complaint, he is not taken seriously. So there are a number of cases when brazenly rules, regulations are violated. We face it daily, and dictates of someone who is powerful in the corridor of power, their voice is being heard. So this is a failure of a system, and systematically the person who are to enforce the law, they are violating the laws. They are not caring about the provisions of the law. This is the situation, and I have cited so many examples with the government and also with the press that this state has become itself has become a victim of the gang of criminal-minded even the officers, and the common person, who is seeking law under the umbrella of the system, they are being victimized. They are being victimized. So the problem with this girl is that she refused to go before the dictates of a criminal-minded person, and he in turn tried to burn her in her own room.
Yes,
so,
she was burned in the comforts of her own house.
Yeah,
मोनिका आर्या, ये दरिंदगी की नेक्स्ट लेवल होगा अगर उनके अपने घर में कोई उन पर पेट्रोल छिड़क करके जला देता है.
जी बिल्कुल सही. कोई भी व्यक्ति अपने घर में सबसे ज्यादा सुरक्षित महसूस करता है, और अगर किसी को ऐसा लगता है कि हम उसके घर में घुसकर या बाहर से किसी भी तरह से उस पर अटैक कर सकते हैं और हमारा कुछ भी नहीं होगा। अगर आपने उसके बाद के वीडियोस भी देखे होंगे जब उसको अरेस्ट किया जा रहा है, तो उसके चेहरे पर कहीं कोई मलाल नहीं है, कोई डर नहीं है। तो हमें ये सोचने का वक्त है, सरकार को भी ये सोचने का वक्त है कि क्या कुछ ऐसे मैसेजेस सोसाइटी में उन्होंने दिए हैं कि कानून का डर खत्म हो गया है लोगों के मन से, वो खुलेआम अपराध कर रहे हैं और इस तरह की विभत्स हत्याकांड को अंजाम दे रहे हैं, जिसकी वजह से आज झारखंड का सर पूरे भारत के सामने शर्म से झुक गया है।
And there has been an
कैसा आदर्श
overall
प्रस्तुत
increase
कर
in
रहे हैं।
crime against women, be it kidnapping
Exactly.
and abduction also in the state over the last couple of years. That's also a reflection on the larger law and order situation in the state and crimes against women increasing. मोनिका आर्या, मैं फिर से वो सवाल पूछूंगी। ये बच्ची अपने घर में थी, वो अपने कमरे में थी, वो एक कंफर्ट जोन था, लेकिन ये शाहरुख नाम का लड़का आता है और उसके घर में उनको जलाता है। ये कैसे ये
जी जी,
This is a
आपका
criminal
सवाल मैं
mind
उसी पर
that we are looking at.
जी बिल्कुल पिछले कुछ सालों में, बल्कि मुझे कहना चाहिए कि हाल के 3-4 सालों में तो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की स्थिति बहुत ज्यादा खराब हुई है। मैं झारखंड में पिछले 12 सालों से रह रही हूँ और मुझे देखकर बहुत अच्छा लगता था कि यहाँ महिलाओं और बच्चों की स्थिति कमोबेश अच्छी है, यहाँ क्राइम रेट कम है बाकी राज्यों की तुलना में। लेकिन इस बात को अब मुझे बहुत दुख के साथ कहना पड़ रहा है कि हाल के 4-5 सालों में, या मुझे लगता है शायद 3-4 सालों में, ये स्थिति बहुत बुरी तरह से बिगड़ी है। यहाँ महिलाओं पर हर दिन इस तरह के अपराध हो रहे हैं जो हम सोच भी नहीं सकते हैं। अगर कोई व्यक्ति अपने घर में सुरक्षित नहीं है तो वो और कहाँ जाएगा। ये मैं जो बात कहने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ वो यही है कि लोगों के मन में अब यहाँ सरकार को लेकर या
If
पुलिस
there
को
is
लेकर
no
उस
fear
तरह
of
का
law,
कॉन्फिडेंस
if there is
नहीं
no
रह
fear
गया
of law, Nirmal
तो न्याय
Kaur,
के लिए बात
and if
करेंगे
there is a
तो
larger
नहीं
sense that you can get away, whatever the reason, the BJP says that he perhaps thinks, and that is the reason why he has no shame or no guilt, because he is from a particular religious community which is actually reached out by the current government. So there is this appeasement politics that is being highlighted by the BJP as well.
I think the boy is very sure in the knowledge that he's done nothing wrong. If you look at his body language, he's kind of looks very proud of it, as if he had climbed Mount Everest or something. There's such swagger and such spring in his step that he has no sense of guilt or no sense of shame about it. And that means there is somewhere in the social kind of milieu of his, there is this, this is an achievement or this is a desirable goal what he has done. If the girl, that you trap a girl, you marry her or you convert her or you get her to produce number of children or you turn her into a, into something that can be used for your domestic use or, for other needs and also perhaps be used by the whole community as a whole. This kind of a social sanction to this behavior. I come across organizations that pay these boys money, give them a motorcycle to romance and trap girls and marry them. And sometimes they are just sent abroad. Sometimes even when they live there, their lives are much worse than that of an animal. They really suffer. So they force the girls to come in. But this girl seems very spirited. This girl seems very, very, alive. Even in her dying declaration, if you see the kind of spirit she is displaying, that she's a fighter. So for such a girl to leave us, it's very sad for
Yes,
this
I think the state government should have flown her, or perhaps got a air ambulance. She could have survived. She should have survived. Saryu Rai, do you think the medical help reached her too late?
Yeah, it was late because Dumka is a remote place. If the doctors there, they couldn't treat well, she was brought to the best hospital, government hospital of the state at Reims. And there are so many volunteers of different organizations. They went to help her. People like me also asked the doctors and the superintendent of the hospital to treat her well. But it is pitiable that the government didn't respond at all. The government, none from the government side, none from the political party, not even from the opposition or the ruling.
It's absolutely shameful, Saryu Rai ji. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Nirmal Kaur, Monica Arya, thank you so much. She was all of 17 years. She was in the comforts of her home. She should have survived. But look, the society has failed her, and more so the state government, which did not even provide her proper medical care. She should have been flown to a better healthcare facility, perhaps in Delhi or in Calcutta, to ensure better healthcare. That did not happen. And 17-year-old, a young girl, all of, class 12 student, and she lost her life only because she refused to give in to the advances of a boy. We are slipping into a short break. After that, we'll be getting you latest in the investigation related to BJP leader and TikTok star Sonali Fogart.